So we are going to work today and do operational training on the NV18E and the 800E. And like I said yesterday, this is specifically focused on dealer training and operational training of the machine. But if you have another question in between to ask me to show you something, just please either pop it in the chat. I have the chat open next to me, or just maybe unmute your mic and then everybody can hear the question if you are comfortable with that. So for today's training, we are going to work with, also again, look at included accessories of the machine. So let me maybe just pull that slide up for you so that we can look together at what's included in the machines. So this is what we're going to do. We are going to look at all the included accessories for both the 18E and 800E. And then we're going to move over to our operational panel and operational keys. And then we're going to go into the LED screen and the on-screen manual. And then we're going to go into the different editing functions of the machine. So the NV18E, which is the small embroidery machine, that's the very beginner one that's available. It comes with its embroidery foot cube, a needle set for bobbins, for bobbins and pre-wound bobbins. It has 10 pre-wound bobbins in the pack with the clips. It has an unpicker, scissors, a cleaning brush, a screwdriver, a disc-shaped screwdriver, your 3 different size spool caps, the thread spool insert that you can use. It's like a mini thread spool that you put underneath the thread, or in the hole of the spool. You get your bobbin case. You only get one because this is not a combination machine. You get a spool net, and you get your 10x10 frame with the grid. You also get an accessory bag, an operational manual, and a quick reference guide. It's important to know with this machine and the NV180 that you only get the 10x10 embroidery frame because your embroidery area will remain a 10x10, even though there is a 10x17 embroidery frame available for this machine. But your embroidery area will remain 10x10. Then moving on to the next one for included accessories, you would get your U embroidery foot, a needle set, 4 bobbins. You do not get the 10 pre-wound bobbins with this machine. You get an unpicker or a seam ripper, scissors. This is the nicest pair of scissors. It has a little green handle. I just absolutely love it. The cleaning brush. You get your large screwdriver and a small screwdriver, and you get an L-shaped and disc-shaped screwdriver. So there's 4. So depending on where you want to get into the machine, it's very nice to have the different shapes. But if you don't have a screwdriver and it's time to clean underneath by your bobbin case, you can always just use a 20 cent. That one also works great. You also get your 3 different spool caps, your thread spool insert, a net for your metallic threads, 1 bobbin case. That one will always be already set in its place on the machine, so it's not loose in the packet. And with the 800, you do get the 16x26 or 160x260 millimeters embroidery frame with the machine and its grid. This machine, the 800E, can take the 2x6, 10x10, 5x7, which is a 13x18 centimeters, and the 150x150 and the 260. So this one gives you a little bit more option on what sizes you can embroider with the machine. Then you also get a poly 90 weight bobbin thread, so it is quite a thicker bobbin thread. You get your accessories bag, a dust cover, the operational manual, quick reference guide, and embroidery design guide. It's also important to note that you can download the manuals on the Brother Solution Center if you've lost it, or if you don't have access to it because it's one you've sold to your client and you also just want to read it. You can go and download it on the Brother Solution Center. Just make sure you select South Africa. Otherwise, you are not going to get South Africa's machines, or like the type, the grouping. They're going to give you other machines and then it's not what you're looking for. You're going to struggle to get our machines. And there's also an app available for the Brother Solution Center. It's also an app you can ask your clients to download, because this is going to be a very good resource center for them to go into later on. So if you're not available, they can always just check the Solution Center, or on an app. It's called the support. Let me just quickly check my phone. It is the support. It gives it a different name. It's the support center on the App Store. Okay, so now moving on to the machine. I just want to move these legs a little bit down so it is also straight and you can see everything. There we go. So now we're going to go on to our operational panel and operational keys for the NV800E and 800E. So this screen looks exactly the same. This one has flowers here at the bottom, whereas the 800 does not have the flowers on the display panel. But other than that, the embroidery units and the embroidery or the embroidery screen is exactly the same, especially with the editing functions. So let's go. The first one is you have your LCD screen, because it's an embroidery machine. Think about the hoop size. Where would I be able to purchase smaller hoops? Amira, or are you you're not a dealer, you're a client of a dealer. You can unmute your mic if you are comfortable with that. So you're a client. Okay. Because you would go through your dealer, you would let your dealer know what size hoop you are interested in, and they would be able to get it from us. We'll courier it. You just ask them to add your address to the email when they order it, and we can courier it directly or straight to you as well from our head office, because we are located in Pretoria. Does that answer your question? You're very welcome. Okay, so going on, we have an LCD screen. All of our machines these days are LCD. So, and this one specifically is a touch panel. So you don't need a stylus for this one. You can click directly on the screen. You don't need one of those special pens. You can just use your finger. Then button 2, which is this one right here, is the previous key. So if you want to go back as well, or next, you would use your next page key, which is this one right here. Then just below that, we have the help key. So this help key opens up different sections of the machine. So example, if you forgot how to wind a bobbin, it would give you this little mini clip art pictures on how to either thread the machine, lifting the foot. It gives these mini little clips. So it shows you should not use a bent needle. That's how to check if the needle is bent, lift the needle, lock the machine, unscrew, take out the needle. So it gives you these little clips, I call them clip art clips, on how to work the machine if you forgot. Then next to that one, we have our settings key. So this is when you want to go into the manual of your machine. So we're going to do that in a moment. Then this button, go back, this one right, machine is arguing with me. This button right here is not on the 18E or the 2600, which is the bigger one of the 800. We only have the embroidery frame. This one I have here is the NV180. It's a combination machine, which is the combination of the A150 and the 18E. So you'll only have the embroidery frame because we're going to work only on the embroidery machine. Then we have the back key, which is this back arrow, which is almost used 99. I rarely use my back key. I always use this back, or the previous key, I use my back key. And in the middle is where you would lock your machine. It has a foot, a needle, and this circle arrow. So exactly that image it has on the button here at the bottom. And that locks your machine so that you can't press any of the other buttons. It's not doing anything. And that is just a safety mechanism that's built in so that you can change your needles. So that is the operational panel. Moving on to the LCD screen. So this is what the screen would always look like when you open up either the 18E or your 800E. It has mostly the same design, but there are some that are bigger on the 800E because of its frame size. So first of all, the first one would be, sorry, I'm always pressing the buttons here with my fingers at the bottom. So your first one here would be your embroidery patterns, and the next to it, it would be brother exclusive patterns. So all of our machines has brother exclusive patterns. Then we have 3 here at the bottom, which is your floral alphabet. So this is also quite a very nice one to use, but they are the full 10 by 10 size of your embroidery frame. And then next to that, we have our alphabet or our character patterns, and you have 10 included patterns, but 7 that we can actually read because the others go into Chinese and Japanese. Then next to that, we have what we call, it doesn't have a specific name, the button, but you would press this button always when you want to turn off your machine and remove your embroidery unit. This is very important. It just moves everything to a neutral position. So if you press that button, it's going to tell you to keep your hands away from the moving embroidery arm. And if I say okay, see, it just moved my embroidery arm out of the way. So for any embroidery machine, this is very important, just to move it to a neutral position. Then next to that, we have our pattern save in the machine memory. Let's see if I have, I don't think, it's just bringing back my embroidery unit. I have a pattern saved on my machine. You don't have a very big space, you do have limited space. We don't recommend saving a lot of projects onto the machine, and you can also delete it from here if you wish to. But try not to save too many patterns onto the machine as you fill up its memory. Always use a memory stick, and try not to go with a too big of a memory stick. And don't use your memory stick as a data storage. If you want to bring it into the machine, load a few patterns onto it, embroider it, and then remove it again. Because if you use a memory stick that is too big, you would slow down the machine, and this counts for all of the machines. So rather just use one specific USB. That is, you don't get 4 gigs anymore. 8 gigs are also becoming quite exclusive. You can't find them anywhere. So 16 gig is the one that's readily available everywhere. That is still a good size to use for your different embroidery machines. Otherwise, it just slows the machines down a little bit. And then lastly is when you have a USB inserted and you want to go directly to those patterns, this is what a USB icon would look like. And if you see on the side of your machine, it also has the USB port with the same sign in front of it. Okay, so now we're going to go into our manual of the machine, and the 800's manual looks exactly the same. So what we have here first is you can select the different frames. For this machine, I can only select the 2x6. There you go. So I keep on pressing the back button with my knuckles. So you can select a 10x10 or a 2x6 centimeters, because those are the ones that are available for this machine. And you go to the 800, it will allow you to move between the 26x16, 18x13, 10x10, and 2x6. So it will allow you to move between those frames. Then just underneath that, you have the option to add a grid to the machine. So you have different grids. So there you just have 2 gray lines on your X and Y value. You have a full-on grid, and every block is 1 centimeter. Oh, stop it. Sorry, I keep on pressing other buttons. Or you can completely remove the grid and just have a blank background, or you can have a little red plus in the middle. I just prefer working with a grid. This is personal preference, how you would set up your machine. Then we have an embroidery frame identification view. So you can either turn this on or off. This doesn't matter. But when it is set to on, a pattern can be selected according to the frame size that your design needs. So if you bring in a picture, say for example, we go with the 800. If I bring in a picture that is the size of a 10 by 10, because that machine can go up to the bigger frames, it will automatically identify the frame that is needed. But what I do on the bigger machines, personal preference coming in here as well, or again, I leave my frame size on the biggest one, always on the biggest one, because then I can bring in any size picture. But if I've selected my machine to be a 10 by 10 and I bring in a picture that is can only be worked in a 5 by 7 hoop, it's going to give me an error and it's going to tell me I need to change my sizes first. So I leave it on the biggest and I can bring in any size picture, and then it's never going to give you an error. But you can, some people do prefer setting their sizes of their frame in their settings. Then what we have next is we can change the thread color display of the embroidery screen. So it can either give you the thread number. This is how the machines come on their default. When you unbox them, it's always set on thread number. So it's going to tell you, let's just grab a picture. Let's just grab that one. I'm going to go through all of this. So now it's going to tell me it wants color 607, which is a lilac-y purple, or it wants a light yellow, which is 010. But I don't know just off of my head. So it also depends on what thread is activated over here. So, but I wanted to tell me what is the name of the color I want. So now it's telling me it wants a wisteria violet or a cream brown. See, I would have selected that as a yellow if I didn't know it was cream brown. So this works, the number of colors work if the embroidery picture is created with the right color palette. And these are only the color palettes available for this machine. So it's Madeira Poly, Madeira Rayon, Sulky. So if the design was not saved correctly, the number of the color of the number, no, the number of color, other way around, or thread number, the code, is not going to display correctly. So it's easier just to leave it on the name of the color and leave it on embroidery, because it's just going to give you the name, and you can always change it. Say for example, I didn't want to use that violet, I wanted to use, let's go with a ridiculous color of black, then you can insert the color thread, because it's not going to pick up what thread you actually thread the machine with. Funnily enough, that is a question that I often get, is if the machine is going to pick up, but it doesn't. So even if you say name of color, you can still thread it with a different kind of thread or different color thread. Then you can set your machine to millimeters or inches. So this is just which one is easier for you. We usually work in millimeters. If you download designs, it usually comes from the overseas market, comes in inches. So you can then change it if you want to. But if you bring in the pattern and your machine is set on millimeters, it's automatically going to give you the millimeters size.
Hi, Anneke.
Ja.
Ekskuus man, ek kry nie daai millimeters of centimeters op my masjien nie. Ek kry wel die name of color en die embroidery. Ek het die 800, die bietjie groter.
Ja. Hy kan dalk net op 'n volgende bladsy wees. Gaan dit bietjie aan?
Okay, jy's reg, ja. Ek kan hom daar op centimeters.
Jy kan 'n millimeter en inches doen, maar jy kan nie centimeters.
Okay, nee, ekskuus, dis doodregte.
Ja, so hy is op die 800 sin lê net op 'n ander bladsy.
Okay, nee, dis.
Hulle verskil so bietjie, maar hulle is ook baie dieselfde.
Ja. Nee, doodreg.
Okay, great. Okay, so going on to our next page, you will see there, let me just see, okay. This one is, let me just see this. Okay. Too much. Okay, there we go. So next we have our thumbnail size. So you can either make your thumbnails, let me just go back. This is what we call thumbnails, where these little pictures are. So for now, they are set on big or large. or you can make them smaller, and if you go back you can now see they are quite small. So you can do this on all of the embroidery machines to select the thumbnail size. But I want to see the picture quite big, so I like having it on the bigger one, on the bigger thumbnail. Then the next part that you have on both of the machines, it looks exactly the same. You can select the background color or change it, either of the embroidery screen, which is the bigger one, or the thumbnails, which are the smaller ones. Let me see if I can do this for you without it distorting. There we are. Okay. So if I select, I can say, for example, I want to make the background green. Say OK. If I go back, you can see my background is green. So this is very nice for people who don't have programs, because you can also change the background in your program. So say, for example, someone wants to argue with you, I want a green tractor on a green shirt. You can come and show them a green tractor on a green shirt. It's not going to work. It's going to disappear. So then you can bring it in. See, let's see if I have a picture that is going to allow. Let's do that one and just go change our screen to a gray. Let's do that gray. It's still showing it, but there you can see as well, it's kind of disappearing. The design is disappearing against the color of fabric. So that is what that function can be used for. I just prefer leaving it on white. And you can also change the background of the thumbnails. So let's go choose another ridiculous color. Let's choose that one. So now you can see the background of my thumbnails are this browny, greeny, funny color. But like I said, I just prefer the clean look of white. Just put it back on white. There we go. Yeah. So then moving on to the next page. On the 800E, there are 2 extra settings between this page, between page 4 and 5. You can adjust your embroidery tension on the 800E. So that machine mostly has an automatic tension unit built into the machine. So that one would pick up, okay, this thread is a little bit thicker, so I need to adjust. Okay, now this thread is a little bit thinner, I need to adjust it as well. Or you can intervene and adjust the tension if you want to, whereas this machine has a tension dial here at the top. Okay, so from the 800 up, you have an automatic tension unit, but still with this machine, you have to change it manually. And with the 800E and above, you can adjust your embroidery foot height. So when you're working with thicker fabrics, or when you're doing those in the hoop projects, you can lift your foot when you have a layer of batting and a layer of fabric, and you have your zip and you have another layer of fabric. You can lift your embroidery foot or lower it when you have this very, very thin fabric that you are currently working with. So that is a function that is available on the 800E and above. Then the machine should be the same again. From here, we have the needle up-down position. When I am doing embroidery, I prefer my needle to be up, because the only 90% of the reason why the machine is going to stop, it's either done with the whole design or your thread broke and you need to remove your embroidery frame, or when the bobbin thread is done. So you need to remove your embroidery frame to fix whatever happened. So if the needle was down, you'd still have to either turn your hand wheel or use your needle lift button to lift your needle. So my argument is just, it's easier to already have the needle lifted, because you're not going to pivot like we do in sewing. And I want to already just be able to remove my embroidery frame or unthread the machine instead of still having to lift the needle. But again, it's also just very much personal preference on that one. Next, we have the machine buzzer. If that is turned off, the machine is not going to make the beep sound when you jump between pages. Yeah, that makes a little beep sound. So that is also very much personal preference. Then next to that, we have, or just below that, we have the opening screen. So the opening screen is when you turn off the machine and turn it on. this is an opening screen. So this opening screen with its pictures are just going to keep on running until you touch the machine and you say hello to your machine. So you can either turn it off and your machine would automatically just open to this page, or you can turn it on and have it open on the opening screen. I usually leave mine on, especially because we have the recall pattern function when the electricity went off. So it is recommended to unplug your machine when the electricity came on, because the first surge of electricity that comes through is usually unstable. And if you forgot, it doesn't matter. It's not the end of it. It doesn't matter. It's not the end of the world if you forgot to unplug it or turn off the machine. So when the power comes back on, the opening screen is just going to keep on running with the pictures until you get to the machine and you can say hello. So no one is going to, by mistake, cancel the recall of your design that you were busy with. So it's just a safety that's also built into the machine. And then below that, we have quite a few built-in languages. You can either do English or Dutch, French, Italian, Dutch, Spanish, Japanese, Danish, Norwegian, Finnish, Swedish, Portuguese, Polish, I think that's pronounced Czech, Romanian, Russia, Korean, Turkish, and English. So there's quite a few. The bigger machines have even more options of languages that are available to them. So you can select the language of your machine. If you are from another country or travel or sell your machine, you can give that as a nice selling feature. Then we have the light. This is the light that is part of by your needle. So it is this light that turns on and off. It's the one in your working area. Okay. Just to see why my camera is jumping like that. Just trying to focus. Turn it so it stops focusing, or else I don't want it to make those lines. Okay. Then next we have our input sensitivity, and that part of the machine is all to do with these buttons and how hard I have to press on my screen to have it do the action that I want it to do. So if you press start, you can up the sensitivity, so you're going to have to press harder to get the machine to do what you want, or you can lower it and you can press even more lightly. But if it has the little black square around the number, that is its default setting. I just leave it on the default setting. I don't want to push the machine through a wall to have it do its action, and I don't want to have to press too lightly. This is a very 3 is a nice like setting to have it at. Then next we have our service count, and the service count and the total count will always be the same. Service count for this machine, that when it has to go for a service, your smaller machines like this, the 18E and the 180, has to go on every 1,000,000 stitches, same as with your sewing machines, or on 1 year, whichever one comes first. For the bigger machines like the 800, 2600 V3, you can go up to 3,000,000 stitches, and then for the XP BP, you go on 5,000,000 stitches or a year, whichever one comes first. And then for our PR range, you can go up to 15,000,000 stitches. Then next we have the machine number, and that one is connected to your serial number. And we have the version of the machine. This one is set to 1.06. And you have to update embroidery machines. Sewing machines is the technician's responsibility to update, but on the Brother Solution Center, you can go and update your machine. So if you search for it and search for the machine, it will tell you it's currently on what version, and they will also give you a list of what is updated. So you would just upload the motorcycle just driving past. There we go. And you would download the new software on a clean USB, insert it into the machine, and you would press on this machine specifically, you would press the needle button, the needle up down button when you turn the machine on, and it will go into its update screen. Okay, so that is the settings of the machine. Okay, this is not on the 18E because this is a combination machine, but those two functions are not on embroidery machines. Any questions thus far? Everybody fine with this, the manual of the machine? Perfect. Let's see if I can. Perfect. Okay. So continuing on, we're going to go into the embroidery edit screen. So I'm just going to grab us a. Do you see? Yeah, that one is small enough. I'm just going to grab us a picture, and that picture doesn't show up too brightly on the camera, so let's see if we can. That one shows better. So we're going to set, because I want to work with this embroidery screen. So if you can see here at the top, we have our magnifying key. So you can magnify, let's go up to 250, and it would zoom in to your embroidery design. I'm going to just go back to 100. Next to that is you have your different frames. So I can only view my 10 by 10 frame over here, but if I had the 800E, I would have more frames available to me, and I can see it in the different frames. So, or I can just zoom into the design. Then next to that, it's going to give you the size of the pattern that is selected on the screen. And you can see there's always a little, it's a square with a circle. And that means that if you have two pictures on your screen, it's going to give you the size of both, or the two designs together. So this one is just under 5 millimeters by 5 millimeters. So we can just basically just make it a little bit bigger. Or if your machine read in inches, it would give you the size. Over here, it shows that my 2x6 frame is unavailable to use for this design because the design is too big. So your machine, even if it's the 800 or the bigger machines, it would gray out the hoops that it will not fit. Next to that, or just below that, we have our move option, but you can either move by, you can either move by just clicking and holding the pattern on the screen, or you can move it with arrows if you want to very specifically move the design around. And you can move in 45 degrees as well on all of the machines. Or if you want to recenter it, move it back completely into the center, you have your little dot there in the middle, so it's going to move or center the design completely. That is to move. Next to that, we have the size option. So on all of the embroidery machines, except from the BP and the XP, you can change the size to make it either just 10% bigger or 10% smaller. And that has to do with the stitch adjustment of the machine. So if you want to make it a little bit bigger than the 10% or smaller than the 10%, you need digitizing software because you have to adjust the amount of stitches per centimeter. So the machine will give you a little, it beeps and tell you when it's done. It cannot go any bigger or smaller. If you want to reset, you just press this square. The LMS there on the side will go into in a minute. That's more for when you do fonts. Then you can also rotate the design. So rotating at 90 degrees is not going to really show you what it's doing now, but I can also just rotate it either by 90 degrees, 10 degrees, or 1 degree. Or you can just reset the design to have it as it was when you originally brought it in. Next to the rotate, it's a very, very nice function that's available on all the machines. Some people tell you, but they don't like the yellow, or let's go to the next one that's a bigger design. There we go, there's some blue. They don't like the blue, they would rather want it pink, or you can carry on with the arrows and it will give you a lot more colors. But let's stay on pink. You can carry on and they'll tell you, I don't want that pink, I'd rather want it yellow. You can come and change just to show some people, give them that visual representation of what the design would look like if you change it. I'm going to now really choose ridiculous colors so that you can see it. So it will just, like I said, give you this representation of what a different color would be like. And if you select OK, you can also zoom in and show them what it would look like. Or you can go back and just reset. Okay, if you selected OK, I don't know that one. It's important to know that. If you've selected OK, you cannot come back and reset the colors to the back to the blues. That's important. Okay. So we're going to leave it on our pink, yellow, and black at the moment. What you can also do is you can mirror it. I'm just going to move because otherwise we're not going to see the mirror image. So I just rotated it a little bit. And if you can mirror image it, that's pretty much self-explanatory that it gives you the mirror image of the design that you were working with. And to move it back, you just select it again so that the blue block is, or the blue highlighted block is not there anymore. The next two will come up when we go into our fonts. So we're going to play with that in a moment. Or I can delete this design and say, but I didn't want that. It's not going to change your original design. The original design would remain the original colors. So if you accidentally went in, changed the colors and said, okay, you can come back and go and pull up the original design. From here, you can also add. So let's say if we want to add, let's do that one. You just carry on. You'll have your small letters. So let's write my name. So you would see here at the bottom, it gives you large, medium, and small. I have a very long name. I have 6 letters in my name, and I know for a fact that if it stays on large and I write all 6 letters, it is not going to fit in my 10x10 embroidery frame. So as just a general rule of thumb, I go to medium because then I can make it bigger or smaller from there. If I selected a 7th letter, the machine would tell you, sorry, it's not going to work. There is no space. I can set the design. I can again move it up only with my fingers, or I can be specific and keep it aligned with the bottom design and move it around. Okay. So I'm just going to delete. You can jump between the selected items by just clicking on the picture. I'm going to delete the picture because I want to layer the different fonts here at the bottom. So now when you have selected a font, you can change the density of a design. 100% is a beautiful 3 density. The only time I would really up the density is when you're working with a towel or a gown that has a thicker pile or a nap, depending on what you call it. I would then up, you can go up to 120% in your density of the letters. But other than that, 100% will always be your default, and that is still a beautiful, absolutely stunning 3 density for letters. Like I said, the only time I up it is for working with towels, and you'd still then put your Avalon plastic on top to keep the thread from disappearing in between the pile or the fibers of the towel. Okay, so now we can do a font edit. So now we can go around and play with our font. And I absolutely love this function. This was not always built into the machines, but now they gave it to us here so we can edit a lot more. You can select multicolor. So as it is now, my entire name will embroider in black. But if I select multicolor, my design is going to break up and I can embroider the A in pink, the first N in blue, the second one in green, the E in orange, the K in yellow, and the second E in lime, for example, if I wanted to. So that is a very, very nice function. But if you have selected multicolor, it's going to stop after every letter. So it's not going to just run, it's going to stop. So that's also important to know. So if you accidentally selected it and wonder why your machine is stopping after each letter and you wanted it to be all of the same color. Next to that, we have array. Array means to write the name in either cursive or at an angle. So if I select an angle, it's not going to select it for me there because it's not in the middle. There's not enough space. There we go. So if it gives you an error because it doesn't want to change the angle, it's because it's too far to the top of your frame. But I can also now change my angle because the A was at the bottom, but I want a different angle. Just press and hold. You'll see it gives you here, it gives you change the direction. And there you go. So now the A is on top and not at the bottom anymore. Or I can write it straight, and a cursive at the a circle at the top or at the bottom. We call this array. So I can either close it and bring the edges closer together, or I can open it with the buttons on the right that shows open. Or it gives you a bigger curve or a smaller curve, but you can adjust the curves on the side. So if I wanted an example to be at the bottom, I can open, the curve is not opening because my name is on the edges, but I can close it and kind of just mush everything together. Or I can just turn it back to straight. So those are all of your array functions. Then there's another function, I absolutely love this one. Usually beforehand on previous machines, we had to, if you decided I wanted a different font, I don't like this block letter font, I decide I want cursive, I had to delete the name and write the entire name again. But now I can just come back and change the font, which is absolutely great. I love this. You don't have to just redo everything. Sometimes you play for 10 minutes and everything is just aligned perfectly, and then you decide that this font is not working with my design anymore. So you don't have to delete everything anymore. So that is that one. Next, we have character spacing. So I can either decide to move them further apart. It's just allowing me to go as how big my frame allows me to, or I can move them closer together and almost mush them up. You can see they're very much on top of each other. It looks like an M instead of two N's. Or I can just press the button here at the bottom and I can just reset. Let me just quickly turn off the grid here. And you'll also be able to see that a little bit better. Perfect. Okay. The next one is a knife function. Let me see if I can just give you I call it a knife function. Let me just see if I have given you absolutely the correct 6. It is a split text key. So it's not a knife key, it's a split text key. So what this does, so for example, I decide we had the multicolor, you can use this in different ways, but you want to group them in twos, for example, working with my name. So I can move my little knife there at the top and I can cut, and I can move it again and I can cut. So now if I go back, I can select the different fonts and I can make the grouped fonts. Wrong one. Different colors. Let's leave that one black. Okay. So you can decide to change the colors in 2 to 2s, or in the smack dab in the middle 3. But what's also nice about this function is, say for example, I made a spelling mistake. And that one was supposed, that first E was supposed to, or let's do this, everybody always gives the second one. People always write my name with the second E as an A, which sometimes drives me nuts, but it's all right. So you can cut, instead of having to go and write the entire name, I can now go and say, but delete that second E, and I can go and add the cursive letter A. There it is. I worked with medium, and I can go set it, and I can go move it into place. I made it bigger, and I played with the size. Okay, so if you've made a spelling mistake, you can just cut out the mistake you made and bring in the letters again. So this is also a very nice function. And the last part about the font edit, let's just grab one that's still connected. So I'm playing with the first A, and if you decide you want that A to be a different font, Oh, I'm pressing the wrong buttons here. Here we go. We wanted a very thin, let's make it a thick one. A thick A. You can change one letter in your font to be, or in your name to be a different font. So that is great. Or I can move around between the letters and make one letter. Now let's make it big. Make it bigger. But remember, it moves the other letters around as well. So let's see. Let me select that one and also make that one nice and big. So if you just decide you want to randomly play with the name, you can go and select the letters and just move that one out of the way. And zoom. So now you can see I can individually change alphabet fonts or change the size of the different designs or of my name.
Anneke, yes. Ek wil net graag weet, ek kry nie daai screenkie waar ek die aparte lettertjies kan select en skuif nie. Miskien het ek
nou dis as ek net weer okay. As jy jou naam ingebring het, is dit hierdie font edit.
Okay.
Jy moet ingaan by font edit en dan gee hy vir jou 'n klomp verskillende funksies wat jy dan individueel kan doen met 'n naam of met 'n spesifieke font. Maar jy moet eers eene indring om daai funksie te aktiveer.
Okay, toe terug.
Het jy hom?
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, and that's font edit. Let me just move. There we go. Back on me. Okay. And that is all the edit functions, and then you can also delete. But if you delete now, is you have to remember you have different patterns on your grid. So if you delete that, it's only going to delete the 1A that I brought in. From here, you can add any of your pictures, any of your frames. There's different frames as well, but I don't want to add that one now. I can just go back again. I can select. If I select, keep on pressing select, you can see the red squares are jumping between the different designs on my grid. Or you can use your finger to press and select the different designs. I can go and I can save this. So I can either save onto my machine or I can save onto a USB. So again, it's not really recommended to save too many designs on your machine, but you can go and save it onto a USB. But now it's important to know that when you save from the machine to a USB, the machine saves as a PEC, not a PES. So if you go, for people who go to their embroidery machine or embroidery programs, if you want to pull up these designs, you have to look at a PEC. But then I also get the question, is it possible for me, I'm just going to save these designs that's pre-built into the machine on a USB? The answer is no. There's a safety setting built in. You cannot save it. Believe me, we've tried it. We've tested it. You cannot save it. This is a beautiful font. I would love to use it on other machines and different products and make it bigger, but you cannot save them. Let me just pull in a design. So if you're using one of these pre-built designs and you've set it, want to save it, save this one onto the machine rather than a USB so that you can recall this one easier. Okay. Any questions this far? Everybody still good? We've gone through all of these. Okay. So going to the next one is we're going to move on to edit end. So we first were in the beginning of the editing the screen, but we're done. Our editing is done. We're going to move on to our next screen. So this one is now going to allow you again to just view the pattern. And now again, you can move the pattern around. If I was in my previous screen, I would have had to select my different designs and move it around. Let me add a word. so that you can see this live. Set. See, now here I can move the designs individually. But if I've decided you are in the middle, you are where I want you to be, and everything is aligned properly, and I want to keep it in this way, I cannot move it out of its proportion over here. We have to go edit end, because now it is moving my entire design as one. See, if I move it around, it's moving it as one. Okay. So that's very important. When you are in your editing screen, you would move your different patterns individually, but when you go to your embroidery screen, it will group them together and you can move them as one. You can also then again decide you want to rotate if you didn't build it to the side, because sometimes I know for me, I always frame so that my excess fabric or towel or t-shirt, the bulk of it is out of the way. I don't want it here on the inside of my machine. And then I realized, but okay, I need to flip the embroidery frame in a different direction so that it is still the right way up. So you can still come and now rotate everything as one, instead of where if I was on the previous screen, I would have to rotate and just get the name. If I rotate so it's flipping the other way because it's close to the edge. So that would just allow me to do one at a time, where here it allows me to do the whole, whatever is on my grid. Then here at the bottom, we have, it's a needle point key. Yeah, it's a needle point key, so it's giving me the needle position. Let me see if I'm actually going to show you, allow you to see right there in the middle of my screen, there's a little green plus sign. So it is currently showing me the middle of my design. But depending on how you've marked your t-shirt, especially for golf shirts, you sometimes mark to have the bottom left corner. And then it would move your needle point to the bottom left corner. That's not where it's going to start. That's just to give you an indication of where the end of the design is, so that you can move your frame around or your fabric around in your frame. So you have 9 different points of where you can select your design. So usually for when I work on the back, I want the middle bottom of my design. So this is just personal preference again, and depending on what you're working with, which point you're going to use. Next to that, you have your trial button, which always gives you the same needle position points. But what this one adds here, it gives you the trial button here on the right. So it's going to trial all around your design. So while you are doing a trial, your embroidery frame, you can see here, this arm is also moving. I'm just going to do that again. And see it's moving top to the bottom and to the side again. So you can see exactly. But sometimes people feel that this trial button just runs too fast for them. So you can then also individually just move it up to all 4 of the corners, which is very nice. We have okay. And then again, you can save it either to the machine or to the pocket, because if you've made some extra changes, you'd want to save it again. It doesn't override if the full pocket is not full, but as soon as your pocket is full and you want to keep on saving patterns, it would start overwriting previous designs. So when we are finally done and ready to embroider, you're going to select embroidery, and it is going to take you to your embroidery screen. It's going to tell you at the top what foot you need to use. For the 800, it will tell you it wants the foot U. It's going to tell you how many stitches does this design do. This one does 4,713 stitches. There is a formula to work out with this what you charge per 1,000 stitches. Some people charge R4.50 per 1,000 stitches. Others I've heard charges up to 15 Rand per 1,000 stitches, but that just makes it ridiculously expensive. The R4.50 average covers your electricity, and it covers your stabilizers. Some people, what they also do, if it is a small 10 by 10 design like this, they have set prices. So for when it's a badge on a school uniform, they charge anything from 45 Rand to 65 Rand. When it's a big name on the back, you can charge anything up to 55 or the minimum of 55 Rand, because you have to frame a big piece of stabilizer. And then there's some wastage on that stabilizer. So some people prefer having these set prices for a school logo or for a name on the back that's an average of 4 to 5 centimeters high. It's all up to you. And then others, when it is intricate designs, when they become part of the digitizing community, they would start asking, like I said, anything between 450 to 15 Rand per 1,000 stitches. Because sometimes a design, if this was now a motorbike with a little birdie on top or something, the stitches can become quite a lot. And then they prefer charging per 1,000 stitches. So that's just an average guideline. And then it's going to tell you how long is it going to embroider. So this one is going to do 12 minutes. And as the time runs on, the top number changes and tell you it has done so many minutes. And then you can just subtract that from the bottom number and you'll know how much you have left. And next to that, we have what color, or not what color, how many colors does this design have. So this one has 8 and we haven't started, so it's currently on 0. At the bottom over here, you have this button. This will cut your jumps, or not cut this one will cut jumps. The smaller one does not cut jumps, but it's also important to know that only the bigger machines cut. This one is because it's a combination machine, it gives you this button. Just quickly want to see something. The 800 also gives this button. I just have to check I didn't put this one in my notes because this machine doesn't, because it's a combination, it cuts. Okay. Underneath that, you have a plus, a minus. This one is to jump between stitches. So you can either go back 1, 10 or 100 or forward 1, 10 or 100 stitches, or you can jump an entire thread color. So if you look at your thread colors here at the top, it's going to jump, and it always jumps to 2 because it wants to start at 1. 0 is just if you've done absolutely nothing of the stitches. And you can jump between the different stitches. And here in the little block, it shows you, if you select OK, what color it is actually busy with, or what part of the design it is busy with. Or if you decide, no, but you want to start this whole thing from the start, sorry, you're just going to press this 0 and everything will 0 out again and allow you to start the design from the start. There was something else. Okay. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to say is my just general rule of thumb when my thread broke is to jump back 20 stitches. This will allow you to work over the part that it is broken to secure that part so it doesn't come undone. And for when I have broken thread, I don't leave enough thread for the machine to work it away. I move that thread around so that the beginning or first 20 stitches again catches that thread. It's just a securing it in place method that I use. The machine does sometimes knot it at the back because it starts slow, or not sometimes, it does knot it at the back, but I just want to give it that extra strength because sometimes clients do go back or to the back of your embroidery designs and they cut the threads, and you cannot cut. Embroidery is not guaranteed when your knot is shorter than 1 centimeter. So it usually leaves about 2.5 centimeters of thread at the back, and people go and they go cut it off, and then the knot is not guaranteed to last. So that is just an extra side note on that. Any questions, ladies, on the embroidery, the on-screen editing? Was this informative? Did you learn some new functions of the machines? Great. glad.
Yes, I did.
Oh, I'm so glad of you. Anything you want me to show again? Everything fine. Again, with this machine, you do not oil it, but you have to open it here at the bottom. Let me just flip my screen around. So here at the bottom, same as that I showed you yesterday, you have to, with this machine, it's a little bit easier. Let me just go back so that I can remove my embroidery unit out of the way. I have some space. You're going to turn the machine off and press here from the back. My nails don't always work with me, and this little plastic unit slides forward, and you can now remove. Oh, why is it so dark? Let me just move the machine so it comes into the light a little bit. And you would then remove your bobbin case and clean it, and remember to never oil it. And you would clean here on the inside. You can also unscrew this plate if you decide, if you want to get in here a little bit deeper. But other than that, is not necessary. Click that one back to make sure. Let me just take it out again. On your bobbin case, there's a little arrow. And just right here behind this screw, there's a circle. Those two have to align. And there's very little movement in the bobbin case. And you just click this back into place. One last thing that I want to show you is it is very important to calibrate your embroidery machine. So once your machine is turned off, this goes for all of the machines, PRs, just not the XP calibrates a little bit differently, but the BP, your scan and cut, all of your machines calibrate the same way. You hold your finger on the screen while the machine is off and you turn it on. Keep it there. With the scan and cut, the Brother logo will first appear. And once the Brother logo appears, you can remove your finger from the screen. But it's going to give you this, this calibration screen. So it's going to give you an X and Y value. And those numbers are not allowed to differ with more than 2 values. For the bigger machines, it goes up a little bit because the screens are a lot bigger. But then you would click as close to possible, or press as close as possible to the 1, carry on to the 2, 3, 4. You see this little square is also moving around, and it will tell you success. Earlier on, mine was on 6 and -6. So this is out by, it was out by quite a lot, but this one is still out by -2, -1, 0, and 1. So it's out by 4 values, and that is too much. So you would then just start by recalibrating the screen again by following the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. Now it's out by only 1 value. If you can get those values to be exactly the same, your machine is calibrated perfectly, but you don't always get to that value. You would do this whenever you've traveled with the machine. The machines don't like the shaking, and the shaking it doesn't completely mess around, but it messes around a little bit with the calibration of the machines. And it's not the calibration of the machine, it's the calibration of your screen. Okay, so don't mix up. Nothing in the machine would be out, like tension or anything like that. It is your screen that is calibrated. If you look at your newer phones, you'd also see that you have to calibrate the screen. And they even calibrate laptop screens. So this is why this is built into the machines.